Welcome to another episode, everyone. This is LA and the most violent gang deaths of the 1990s. I know some of these individuals and how they were murdered. Let's get into it.
Jamerson. It was March 13th, 1995. The Soul Train Music Awards had just ended, and the real action was taking place at the El Rey Theater in Los Angeles. The place was buzzing, an invite-only after-party thrown by Death Row Records, where artists, gang affiliates, and celebrities all mixed in a volatile cocktail of fame and street politics. Death Row was deep with Bloods and Pyrus, so when Kelly Jamerson, a known Rollin' 60s Crip, showed up, tension immediately filled the air. He was stepping straight into enemy territory. As the night went on, things took a deadly turn. A heated argument broke out involving Jamerson and several Bloods believed to be a part of Suge Knight's inner circle. Within seconds, the party's atmosphere flipped from glamorous to chaotic.
And then now you hear cats throwing up and saying they hoods. So all the homies doing that. Now at the end of the day, everybody in here drinking and all this. So it went haywire.
People started pushing, yelling, and running as the argument escalated into violence. Jamerson suddenly found himself surrounded by a mob, 8 to 10 men closing in from all sides. What followed wasn't a simple brawl. It was a savage execution. Witnesses said he was beaten relentlessly with fists, chairs, and bottles, and stomped on as he lay on the floor. In a desperate fight for his life, Jamerson tried to get up, even crawled toward the door, but he was dragged back and attacked again. A woman who was related to him and witnessed the incident described the horror later, saying there were so many people attacking him that no one could step in to help. The beating was so severe that by the time it was over, she could barely recognize him. His face was swollen and disfigured beyond recognition.
The melee started between everybody, just the Pyrus and pretty much any Quicks that will get, or any Crips that will get involved. And that's how he got stumped out.
What made it worse were the claims about Suge Knight's actions during the attack. Instead of stopping it, witnesses said Knight stood by and shouted, "Y'all get that ninja," encouraging the beating. To make matters worse, off-duty LAPD officers hired as death row security reportedly walked out the moment the fight broke out, leaving Jamerson defenseless. He was eventually rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but his injuries were too severe. Kelly Jamerson died early the next morning from massive head trauma. Death Row later quietly settled with his family, but no one was ever held truly accountable. Donald Ray Loggins and Peyton Beroit. August 5th, 1991, started like any other hot summer day in South Central Los Angeles. On the corners of 88th Street and Central Avenue sat a small, busy car wash, a neighborhood hangout spot where locals brought their rides to shine them up. Donald Ray Loggins, a 25-year-old cable technician and father of a 5-month-old baby, was there that day with his friend Peyton Beroit. The two sat in Loggins' white Toyota Supra, waiting their turn, talking casually with no idea that they were minutes away from being executed. Across the street, in a house with a porch that looked right at the car wash, sat Cleeman Big Evil Johnson, the feared leader of the 89 family Bloods.
And of course, I've done content before on Big Evil. And so they're talking, and I may have actually even recited these killings right here on my channel. I do recall this. So the first dude was stomped out and died from his injuries, supposedly from 60s. Supposedly Suge Knight and his crew was involved, but no one apparently was charged or whatever. They just settled monetarily for money.
Johnson was notorious even by South Central standards, a man police claimed was tied to over 20 murders. Cold, calculating, and charismatic, Johnson ran his turf like a general.
In the 80s and 90s, Johnson was a notorious leader of the 89 family Bloods gang. Police have linked him to 20 murders and called him the most cold-blooded killer in the city.
That day, he issued an order that would turn the car wash into a crime scene. The reason for the hit was almost absurd. Loggins and Beroit lived east of Central Avenue in an area considered Crip territory. Just being there made them enemies in Johnson's eyes. He used the opportunity to test a new recruit, sending him to earn his stripes by carrying out the murders. From his porch, Johnson sat back and watched as the plan unfolded like a show. An accomplice, Michael Fat Rat Allen.
Indeed. So these were individuals who were not gang members. That were in Swan neighborhood. They talking about 89 family Swan Bloods, where Big Evil was from. And even though he knew that they were not gang members, since they were in his hood and they lived in Crip hood or what have you, he told someone, man, go over there and kill him. And the person did, allegedly.
Pulled up with an Uzi submachine gun. Without warning, he unleashed a burst of bullets into the car. Both Loggins and Baroid were hit 3 times and died instantly, slumped in their seats. The shooting happened in broad daylight in front of dozens of witnesses, but not one person spoke. Johnson's reputation kept the entire neighborhood silent. Detectives would later describe Johnson's eerie, big evil laugh that sent chills down their spines. Even after being convicted of multiple murders, he never seemed afraid, smiling through his trials like he was untouchable. In 2011, his convictions were overturned, but by then, the damage had been done. Jerome Dunn. It was the evening of March 25, 1982 in Long Beach. The sun was dipping low over 88th Place and McKinley Avenue as Jerome Dunn, a young Grape Street Crip, pedaled down the block on his bicycle dressed in his gang's signature blue. Riding beside him was a fellow Crip. The street seemed calm, but a van carrying rival 89th Street family Bloods soon turned that calm into chaos. Behind the wheel was Barry Big Time Williams, a man known in the neighborhood for being both ruthless and unpredictable. This wasn't some random encounter, this was a calculated hit. Witness Patricia Lewis, parked nearby in her station wagon, had a clear view of the van as it crept closer. She would later recall how she stared directly at the driver for nearly half a minute, noticing a shiny object glinting in the corner of his mouth. Inside the van, the Bloods were laughing, hyped up, preparing for the kill. Williams pulled up beside Dunn, rolled down his window, and raised a gun. The barrel was only inches away from Dunn's head when he fired 5 shots in rapid succession. The bullets tore through Dunn's head and upper body, killing him instantly. His friend barely managed to escape as the van sped off. Later, Williams bragged to another Blood that he took out some fool AG quarters, referring to a Crip from Avalon Gardens. But the horror didn't end there. Patricia Lewis, the brave woman who witnessed it all, soon began receiving threatening phone calls. The gang knew she had seen too much. Then, one January night in 1983, her house was riddled with gunfire, more than 40 bullets tearing through the walls and windows while she, her husband, and her grandson hid inside. Lewis somehow survived, crawling across the floor with her grandson in her arms. Terrified, she later claimed to lying during the first hearing, saying she was too afraid to tell the truth. "I was in fear for my life," she said. The Moreno family massacre. Anthony Dido Moreno grew up knowing the rule that governed the Mexican Mafia: blood in, blood out. He had joined Laniak back in 1972 while behind bars, but by 1983 he tried to step away. That decision marked him. His brother warned him something might happen, but Dido was deep in a heroin addiction and didn't fully grasp the danger closing in. Laniak didn't forgive betrayals, and the group's leaders kept tabs on anyone who stepped out of line. Raymond Hueto Shyrock, a top figure in the organization, had been watching Dido and an associate named Gustavo Tito Aguirre. Shyrock saw them as threats because Aguirre had been robbing drug dealers who paid the mafia their taxes. He wanted Dido dead and passed the order down, telling his people to get rid of him while saying he did not want the children harmed. That instruction would not be honored. Luis Pelon Maciel, a newly sponsored member hungry to prove himself, scoped out the Moreno house on Maxon Road in El Monte and even visited the family earlier that day with a gift of to make Dido and his brother less alert before the hit. Around 10:30 p.m. on April 22, 1995, the hit team arrived. Men from a Sangre crew, including Richard Primo Valdez and Jimmy Character Palma, carried out the operation under orders that left no room for witnesses. Valdez moved in first, shooting Dido at close range in the head, the bullet exiting the other side. Gustavo Aguirre was executed the same way. That should have been the grim end, but the night went even darker. Palma turned his weapon on Maria Moreno, Dido's sister, who was wounded and then shot again at intermediate range as she lay dying. Then Palma executed the children. 5-year-old Laura was shot in the chest. Investigators found a tiny, bloody handprint on Maria's clothing where Laura had reached toward her mother in those last moments. 6-month-old Ambrose Padilla suffered a shot through the eye that severed his spinal cord. Prosecutors argued the baby had been awake, terrified as the shots rang out. Palma later bragged about killing the woman and the kids, and he was sentenced to death for his part in the massacre.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this clearly. Had instructions, as this dude just said, to go in there and take out that one individual. Had a hit on him for whatever the betrayal was. And this dude and his boy goes in there and, as we can see, kills everyone, massacres the whole family, 5-year-old child, infants, and everything. And if this is the same situation, when he got to death row, they killed him for not following the right orders, for killing children, because they didn't send him in there for that. They said, go and take this dude out. And he go in there and kill the whole family. And supposedly, they don't get down with that. They don't agree with that, killing kids and families and all this, wives, sisters, people who have nothing to do with the situation. So I believe when he went to death row for this massacre, they killed him on death row, the mafia, if this is the same situation. Let's see if he says that, though.
The killing of children, however, violated a brutal code even Laniak claimed to maintain. Other inmates on death row murdered Palma in retribution, completing...
Yeah, I don't watch these before I play them because I want my reaction to be what my reaction is. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about. They killed him on death row. I remember I saw a video. He was stretched out, leaking. They had blurred it out, but he was stretched out on a basketball court or something, on a yard on death row for this situation right here. I remember seeing that video some years ago. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, so they took him out for killing everyone in the house, for killing the kids. The order was to go and kill this one individual, and he went in there and killed every damn body, kids and every fucking thing.
A grim cycle of violence and vigilante discipline inside the criminal underworld. The Moreno massacre stands as one of those horror stories that shows how organized crime can drag innocent family members into a world of vengeance, where an attempted exit by one person can destroy an entire household. Tony Bogard. His name carried weight in Watts for a reason. He was a longtime OG with a PJ Watts Crips who would try to move beyond the street life and into community healing. He helped organize the 1992 Watts Truce, co-founded Hands Across Watts to build programs for youth, and even appeared on national television to talk about repair and peace. To many residents, he was a symbol of change. To the street, though, he remained a figure with a past and enemies who kept score. Bogard's history made him cautious. In 1990, he survived an assassination attempt that left him shot 8 times with an AK-47. Pieces of shrapnel and bullet fragments stayed lodged in his arm, leg, and thigh, and a limp became part of the way he walked. After that ambush, he rarely left home without a bulletproof vest, but on January 13, 1994, something went wrong. He confronted Rodney Compton, another PJ Watts member and suspected dealer, in the parking lot at Imperial Courts. The argument reportedly revolved around money, either Bogard demanding a cut of Compton's drug profits for community projects, or a dispute linked to a bad ripoff. Whatever the specifics, the fight escalated into a gun battle. When police arrived, the scene told a brutal story. 25 casings littered the ground, and Bogard was lying dead, hit 6 times in his chest, stomach, back, arm, knee, and hand. The man who once survived a military-grade ambush had been killed without his usual protective vest. The irony was raw. A person who had worked publicly toward peace and taken steps to reduce violence ended up a casualty of the same world he was trying to change. Some in the community saw Bogard as a traitor to the street code. Others saw him as a tragic figure caught between transformation and old loyalties. When you stand up against your homeboys like Tony did, you face that danger, said T. Rogers, a former Bloods leader who runs a consulting firm known as Sidewalk University. Once you make that change in your life, you no longer believe in what they believe in. Your thinking has changed, and that's what's scary to them. The FBI had been investigating him as a potential kingpin, and federal prosecutors monitored his case closely. One went so far as to attend his autopsy to be sure that the man they had tracked was really dead. Bogard's death exposed the uneasy truth about attempts at reform inside violent systems. Reputation, history, and the hunger for power can turn even a peacemaker into a target. Peanut Deuce.
And that's what happens when you try to get out of a gang sometimes, turn your life around, do what's right, be a community activist. You still are in the neighborhoods. As you try to help reform them, you're there. And your life is in danger.
KP. By the mid-1990s, Los Angeles had become a place where gang conflict and the rap industry collided in deadly ways. KP was part of that collision. He was a member of the Denver Lane Bloods and associated with the Damu Riders Rap Collective, a group whose music and public presence tied them to Blood identity. That visibility made them targets. In November 1995, KP was stalked by rival Crips in an ambush that was less a random act of violence than a planned execution meant to terrorize the Bloods and silence one of their prominent voices. The attack on KP was marked by an overkill that functioned as a message. He was shot 17 times. That kind of excessive force was a signature move, designed to make clear the depth of hatred and the intent to demonstrate dominance. In those days, bullets were used not just to kill, but to proclaim supremacy. KP's murder fit a pattern where multiple members of Damu Riders and other blood-affiliated artists were picked off one by one. The killers aimed to remove the movement's visible figures. For the perpetrators, eliminating those who represented the rival set of music and public life was part of a broader campaign to crush not just people, but the symbols they stood for. When KP's body was found, the number of wounds made plain how deliberate the attack had been. The ravages left no question that this was sending a message back to Blood leadership and to anyone else who might think fame could shield them from street logic. Salvador Buenrostro. By the early 90s, the Mexican Mafia, known as La M, was an empire that reached from the deepest tiers of Folsom and San Quentin out into the streets of Southern California. Their control rested on two simple principles: complete loyalty and swift, merciless punishment for anyone who disrespected or betrayed them. Salvador Buenrostro, once a respected MS soldier, found that out the hard way. On July 16, 1991, inside the walls of Los Angeles County Jail, Buenrostro met a fate that didn't come from an outside rival. It came from within his own organization. He was cornered and attacked by two other MM members, Benjamin Topo Peters and Rene Boxer Enriquez, both known for carrying out the gang's deadliest orders. They chose an interview room inside the jail, a supposedly safe space, as the setting for the execution. The weapons were handmade shanks, crude but deadly tools of the trade inside any lockup. The reason behind this brutal stabbing was as simple as it was deadly. Salvador Buenrostro had been accused of stirring internal conflict within the Mexican Mafia, and worse, taking sides against one of its most powerful figures, Joe Pegleg Morgan, the group's legendary godfather. In La M's world, power and loyalty were everything, and even appearing disloyal to Morgan was seen as a death sentence. Buenrostro had reportedly aligned himself with a rival faction inside the organization, which only made matters worse. When word reached Morgan and his inner circle, the order was clear: Buenrostro needed to be dealt with. The attack came quickly, inside what was supposed to be a secure interview room at the Los Angeles County Jail. Fellow MM members Benjamin Topo Peters and Rene Boxer Enriquez were chosen to carry out the hit. They came.
And that's just it. Right there in the county jail, you can lose your life anywhere. Here they are in an interview room. Not inside of a cell, not inside of a day room, but inside of an interview room. And they were still able to carry out this brutal and vicious attack. Apparently, a brutal and vicious killing. And as he just alluded to, he was marked for death, this individual here, for betraying or causing conflict within his organization. Now they're aiming to take him out.
Armed with sharpened shanks, crude but deadly weapons, and went at him with full force. The assault was vicious and personal, with Buenrostro being stabbed 26 times in a matter of moments. Each strike was more than just violence. It was a message. It told everyone inside and outside those walls that questioning Morgan's authority or disrupting the internal balance of La M would be answered with blood. But despite the ferocity of the attack, Buenrostro didn't die. Against all odds, he survived the stabbing, something almost unheard of for a target of a sanctioned mafia hit. His survival didn't lessen the message, it amplified it. Word spread fast that even though Buenrostro lived, the attack proved no one was immune. If the organization could turn on one of its own soldiers, then anyone could be next. L. Kennard, Big Freeze. Christmas morning, 1999, was supposed to be calm, but for Big Freeze, it ended in tragedy. A respected member of the Watts Franklin Crips, Big Freeze was also part of the nationwide Rip Riders, a rap group formed by real Crip members who used their music to represent their set. They were authentic, street-certified, and unfiltered, a reflection of life in South Central where rap and gang culture intertwined seamlessly. At around 3 a.m. on December 25th, Big Freeze stopped by a 24-hour burger joint near Rosecrans and Illa Avenues in Hawthorne. He was dressed in full blue, denim shirt, blue Dada Supreme tee, the kind of outfit that left no doubt about where his allegiance stood. To his rivals, that outfit was a flag, and in gang politics, flags get targeted. Out of nowhere, an unknown gunman walked up behind him and opened fire. The shots came from close range, quick and decisive. Witnesses said Big Freeze didn't even have time to turn around. The pattern of the wounds told investigators exactly what happened. He was hit in the back, hands, and wrists. It was a textbook ambush, a hit designed to end a life before the victim even knew he was in danger. Freeze collapsed inside the restaurant, bleeding out as chaos erupted around him. Paramedics rushed him to Harbor UCLA Medical Center, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. For those who knew him, it was a cold reminder that being famous in the streets didn't mean being safe. Police quickly labeled it gang-related, another piece in a long chain of retaliations that had fueled thousands of murders across Los Angeles County for over 2 decades. The loss hit the nationwide Rip Riders hard. Just 2 years earlier, another member, AWOL, had been killed. Now Freeze was gone too, leaving the group gutted. His death was symbolic. It showed that no amount of fame, recognition, or music could shield a person from the brutal realities of gang life. In the end, Big Freeze became another statistic in a war that didn't stop for holidays or reputations. Lil Laniak Deuce. By the mid-19...
Yeah, Big Freeze was killed on Christmas, December 25th. That's why he made that remark about holidays. And that wasn't a Crip and blood situation, or he said because Big Freeze had on all of this blue and this and that. That's not why that went down. I'll just say that.
1990s, Los Angeles gang culture had already swallowed a generation, and even those who found fame through music couldn't escape its pull. Lil Laniak Deuce, a proud member of the LA Denver Lane Bloods and a key figure in the Damu Riders rap group, was one of them. The Damu Riders were a tight-knit collection of blood-affiliated rappers, real gang members who lived every lyric they recorded. But the spotlight couldn't save them. Almost every core member of the group eventually met the same fate, murdered in gang-related shootings. Lil Laniak Deuce's death was particularly grim because it came not at the hands of Crips, but from another blood faction. In a shocking act of internal violence, members of the Campanella Park Pyrus ambushed him. It was a case of one blood set turning on another, a reminder that the lines of loyalty could shift at any moment. The murder took place in public, but what made it especially disturbing was that his young daughter was right there with him. He was walking with her when the gunman appeared and opened fire. The shooters showed zero hesitation, zero care, and absolutely no regard for the innocent life just a few feet away. It was an execution carried out in front of a child, proving that by the late 90s, the street code had eroded completely. For Lil Laniak Deuce's family, it wasn't their first tragedy. His brother Big Laniak had already been killed in another incident, leaving their loved ones to face loss after loss. Fellow blood rapper G-Len later memorialized both brothers in a song called For the Money, a track that turned personal grief into a eulogy for 2 lives lost to an endless cycle of revenge. The murder left a deep mark on the blood community. What once might have been ruled by codes of respect and boundaries had dissolved into chaos where anyone, even a father holding his daughter's hand, could be targeted. Luna and Lizarraga. When American Meat hit theaters in 1992, it was a bomb dropped in the middle of California's prison system. The movie peeled back the curtain on the origins and bloody rise of the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, and that didn't sit well with the real people behind the story. Joe Pegleg Morgan, the organization's respected godfather at the time, took it as a deep insult. To him, the film was more than just an exaggerated Hollywood tale. It was a betrayal that exposed their secrets to the world. In the eyes of La M, that was unforgivable, so the order went out. Anyone connected to the film who had ties to the organization was marked for death.
And from what I understand, some of the people featured in that movie, got killed because of them being in that movie.
The first to pay the price was Charles "Charlie" Brown Manriquez, a seasoned member of the Mexican Mafia who had served as an advisor on the film for Edward James Olmos, the director and star. Manriquez was a trusted voice in the streets and behind bars, but his decision to help shape the movie's realism would prove fatal. In March 1992, just weeks after the film's release, Manriquez was walking through the Ramona Gardens housing projects in East Los Angeles when gunfire erupted. He was shot multiple times and collapsed on the sidewalk. When authorities arrived, they found an American Meat business card still in his pocket, an eerie reminder of the very project that had sealed his fate. His murder sent a chilling message: no one was untouchable. Barely 2 months later, the Mafia struck again. This time, the target was Ana Lizarraga, a respected community gang counselor from Ramona Gardens who had also worked as a consultant on the film. On May 13, 1992, she was ambushed and gunned down near her home. The shooter, Jose "Joker" Gilbert Gonzalez, a known member of the Big Hazard gang, was later caught while trying to escape. For Gonzalez, the hit wasn't just revenge, it was an opportunity to prove loyalty. Carrying out Lizarraga's murder earned his gang huge respect from La M, and in return, the long-standing green light that had made Big Hazard a target for years was lifted. The death of Manriquez and Lizarraga sent shockwaves far beyond East LA. They were brutal reminders that La M's power didn't end at the prison gates. Whether someone was a lifelong gangster or a community worker trying to change lives, once they crossed the organization, even unintentionally, the consequences were fatal.
That's vicious right there. So they wasn't even, they were just making a movie, but apparently giving out too many secrets in Hollywood about the organization. And they decided that anyone who had anything to do with the movie had to go, women included, and knocked them off. That's crazy.
Uribe. Life inside the Los Angeles County Jail has always been dangerous, but in 1993, it became a stage for one of the most vicious murders tied to the Mexican Mafia's prison politics. The victim, Jose Uribe, was marked for death long before it happened. He had been labeled a rata, meaning an informant, a word that carried a death sentence in the world of La M. For some inmates, taking out a so-called snitch wasn't just about revenge, it was an opportunity to prove their loyalty and earn favor with one of the most feared prison gangs in America. It happened in February 1993, inside the high-powered wing of the county jail. Uribe was locked in a cell, supposedly isolated and safe from harm. But there's no such thing as safety when the enemy lives right beside you. Two inmates, Jorge Lopez and Joaquin Alvarado, decided that killing Uribe was their ticket to status and respect. The attack was calculated. When the guards weren't watching, they slipped into Uribe's cell armed with handmade shanks. What followed was pure carnage. Uribe was stabbed 37 times in a matter of seconds. The confined space turned the murder into a brutal display of dominance. Every stab meant to send a message. The overkill wasn't accidental, it was the point. In the world of La M, violence was performance. The more excessive the act, the stronger the message. Lopez and Alvarado knew that if they executed Uribe with precision and savagery, word would travel fast. Killing a marked man like Uribe and doing it with such brutality was how you proved your worth. When guards found Uribe's body, the message was unmistakable. Even behind bars, the Mexican Mafia controlled life and death. No courtroom or locked cell could protect someone once they were greenlit.
Wow. Wow. Okay. There you have it, man. The mafia. Whew, they taking shit out across them. Movie motherfuckers and all that. They don't care. Damn, those were some crazy deaths in the 90s. I remember some of these intimately. And hopefully we can all turn the corner, man, soon in the 2000s, man. Get away from all of this violence and death. It's been so much of it. Stay safe and stay free, people.